Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald were the first pair of Pokemon games to be considered the black sheep of the series. Nowadays, it's actually more well received just due to the region, the Pokemon, and how these games add many of the mechanics we see today. Of course, these games don't do everything right, but I still think that this game, or these trio of games, do a lot right. Also note, when I be talking about Gen 3 in this video, I will be talking about the GBA games and the Gen 3 remakes, so don't really get confused with any other game. For example, I already talked about the Gen 1 remakes in my Gen 1 video, so obviously, if you want to see those ones, you can. I'll link in the description and whatnot, but again, in this case, I'll just be talking about anything and everything Generation 3. But let's get into the video, and one of the things I did like had to be the fact that the region is really fun to explore. This region has a lot of cool things to see, like the desert, the caves, the volcano, the beach, and a lot of it just feels natural. It also has a lot of side areas like the Mirage Tower and Emerald, or the places with the Aqua Bike, and a lot of the dive areas. And many of this just makes the region feel more alive and just fun to explore. This region is also really connected to each other, where there are routes that connect to later routes and older routes and stuff like that, and I feel it just again feels a lot more alive and just feels a lot more connected to each other, and just stuff like that I just really like with this region. Another thing I really did like is how the Gen 3 games improved on the gameplay of Pokemon. This generation basically more or less added all the stuff we have now, stuff like the abilities, the changes to the EV system, and I guess the IV system, double battles, weather, and much of all those smaller stuff to make the games feel a lot more balanced. Stuff like double battles and the EV systems I really do like, since for example the double battles make you consider more with what you have to do in battles. This goes with the abilities as well. The changes to the EV system, as I mentioned, that I liked, can allow you to make more unique sets and allow you to develop the Pokemon's strengths and weaknesses a lot better. Like for example, you can mostly have like a Flygon that can last a little bit longer, since you can create its HP stat by a larger margin and stuff like that. And I feel a lot of the game mechanics introduced in this generation just flesh out the game and again just make it a lot more balanced. Another thing that I did really like about this generation has to be the Pokemon themselves, and I know I've mentioned this before in my other videos, but again I do think these designs feel really natural and fit the region really well. Some of my favorites have to be Tropius, Torkoal, Flygon, Zangoose, Milotic, Dusclops, Camerupt, and just a whole bunch more. Another improvement I think the Gen 3 games made has to be the Evo team. They're not the greatest, but I feel they're more of a threat than Team Rocket ever was. All they want to do is just awaken the box legend and then change how the world is covered, either with land or more water, and obviously it's not the greatest spot, but I feel it's a lot more involved in comparison to Generation 1 and 2. And I know Pokemon hasn't really been known for side content, at least in the recent generations, but I feel like Generation 3 has some nice additions like contests, which I find really cool. Then there's some extra legendaries like the Regis and Rayquaza, and Emerald we can catch the all the three weather Pokemon and also the Laddie twins in all three of the games. But again, Emerald is where it's better because that's a Battle Frontier, which is my favorite area, but it just kinda sucks that this is in the third version. Gen 3 games are more well liked now from what I can see, and I'm glad, since they are pretty solid games, but of course there are some things I just still don't like about them. One of them has to be the underutilization of the new mechanics and stuff like the double battles and abilities. There are all battles that can take use of the double battles, but they're few and far between, at least in Ruby and Sapphire. Emerald does fix this, but I still think it's pretty lacking. They also don't really use the abilities all too well, or at least from what I hoped, since a lot of them don't really change the battle all too much. I feel like they could use double battles a lot more often, and again, they use the abilities to help it. Like for example, using weather teams, having one Pokemon activate the Guts ability on their partner Pokemon, actually using plus one mining, and just a bunch of other methods. Of course, they can make some of these stuff work in single battles, like for example, having a lot of Pokemon that use the Guts ability and having like the player just trick them into using the static conditions or whatever. I don't know exactly, but of course, I feel there could be a lot more just harder difficulty with a lot of the new mechanics. And of course, another thing that I just disliked, and that's the post game. Imagine how some of the side content I did like in Gen 3 games, but there isn't much. What is there is good, but it won't really hold your attention for long. Emerald did improve on this, but like I said, it sucks that there needed to be a third version just to fix that. The other thing that really sucked, to me at least, has to be to remove the day and night system. And I know they're all time-based events like the berry stuff, but it just doesn't really feel the same. And I know the reason that Game Freak gave was that they didn't want the batteries on the cartridges to like run out faster, but I felt like the gap between gold and silver and ruby and sapphire was big enough to where they can maybe just decide to improve on it and just make sure the batteries actually do last longer. And as I mentioned before, the villain team I just did not really like as much. The motivations are just kind of stupid, with wanting more land and water, since like obviously you can't really have one without the other. And the teams are just underwhelming as villains because I feel like they just act really stupid. I give credit where Game Freak did try to make better villains in comparison to Generation 1 and 2, but I feel just not as much, and just feel, again, they're just underwhelming. I still do think that Generation 3 is fun to play, regardless of if you're playing the Game Boy Advance games or the Gen 6 remakes. To me, it's on my top 3 favorite list of Pokemon generations, but that's purely based on how fun the region is to explore, and me just liking a lot of the Pokemon from this generation. I would still say these games are pretty solid, but I feel Generation 4 and 5 kind of just have a lot of the stuff that I enjoy about Pokemon, but obviously these games still are, again, pretty solid. But yeah, again, let's go over the likes and dislikes. Likes, fun region to explore, improvements to the gameplay, great Pokemon designs, more impactful evil teams, and some nice side content. Dislikes, doesn't take advantage of the new gameplay additions, less so post-game in comparison to Generation 2, and of course this is just with Ruby and Sapphire and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Emerald I find to be a lot better. Again, this one's just to those games I mentioned. No day and night system, and underwhelming villains. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys later.